How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. This is my first thoughts today. This one is on Hamza, Guardian of Arashin. So this was requested by Daniel Zitnik. So thank you, Daniel. And yeah, we're gonna hop into this. But before we do, first big announcement. So we're opening up the Discord to not just patrons, but anyone can join the Discord. It's gonna be linked down below. So if you want to chat with us, hang out with us in the Discord, just click that link and join us. Say hi. It's a good time in there. But there are very definitely patron perks within the Discord, special channels, stuff like that. So if you want to access those, then you just got to become a patron. And you can do that through a link down below as well. You can also support the channel if you want to buy any of the cards I talk about in this video. Buy them through the TCG Player affiliate link down below, and it helps out the channel. And then don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like this video, and I want you to comment what commander you want to see in the next first thoughts. Preferably something new, and yeah, something new that I haven't done yet. So comment that down below, and I will try my best to get to it. And yeah. We'll hop into this now. Hamza, Guardian of Arashin. So this card is pretty cool. It's very powerful, especially for an uncommon card. And it costs less for the number of creatures with a +1/+1 counter on them. And creature spells you cast cost less for each creature you control a +1/+1 counter on them. So there's a lot of interesting synergies you can do with this. First of all, the first category I want to talk about is just ways to get counters on things. That way you can have a big board full of creatures with counters, so your spells cost a lot less. Probably one of the best cards in the deck is Felidar Retreat, because that both makes you tokens and puts counters on everything. So like if you have a fetch land, you can play the land, make a token, crack the fetch, put a counter on everything when you get the new land enters. And so that like immediately lowers all of your spells cost by 1 at the minimum. Felidar Retreat just seems like a very, very powerful card in the deck. Next up, I want to talk about Bloodspore Thinax, the Great Henge, Juniper Order Ranger, Renata Called to the Hunt, and Good Fortune Unicorn. All of these cards just make it so your creatures enter the counter on them innately, just so they enter the battlefield with a counter. Seems like an easy way to go about this, and they seem like powerful cards in the deck. Forgotten Ancient just grows and grows and grows whenever your opponents cast stuff. Then you can distribute the counters however you like during your turn. Cathar's Crusade, the more creatures you play, the more counters you get. Just seems very good. Loyal Guardian, at the beginning of combat you get to put a counter on everything. Johnny the Great-Hearted, you can minus and put counters. Macias the Lunarch, just kind of a cool card that as you grow, like the more you grow it, the more you can grow everything else by shrinking it. Like it just kind of, it works pretty well in the deck. Very synergistic. Shalai, Voice of Plenty. It gives you a lot of protection while also giving you a mana sink that dumps counters on everything. You got Avenger Zendikar. Make a buttload of tokens, and then every time you play a land, you get a ton of counters. Avenger Zendikar, like say you have just 7 lands. Because Avenger costs 7. So you have 7 lands in play. Play Avenger, you get 7 tokens. You play a land, all your 7 tokens get a +1/+1 counter on it. Now all your spells cost 7 mana less to cast. Unreal. Like that's so powerful. We got Pledge of Unity, which I totally forget what it does. I think it just puts a counter on everything. Hold on, it's loading. But I'm pretty sure Pledge of Unity just puts a counter on all creatures you control. And you gain a life for each one. So yeah, that's instant speed, so that's kind of cool. You can also use like Basri's Solidarity and Lifecrafter's Gift to do similar things. Vast Void of Fortification just seems like a good MDFC. The land on one side, and in a pinch, it's a +1/+1 counter on the other. You got Oath of Ajani, which is similar, just puts a counter on everything. And it also has upside with your Planeswalkers, and there's a lot of Planeswalkers that actually help with this. Like, I already mentioned Johnny the Great-Hearted. There's multiple Johnnies that work really well in this deck, including like Johnny Goldmane. And there's some Nissas, like Nissa Voice of Zendikar. And you can also throw in Gavany Township, because it's a land that you just throw counters on everything. Good way to use extra mana. And yeah, that's what I've got for the counters part. Just putting counters on things. Next up, we're going to talk about counter doubling, because if you're going to be doing so much stuff with counters, you might as well try to make your stuff as big as possible. And by doubling your counters, you can do that. So you got Branching Evolution, Doubling Season, Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider, and Colonian Hydra. All of those literally double. And then there's also Conclave Mentor and Hardened Scales, which add an additional. So those all seem like auto includes in this deck. Next I want to talk about, also kind of in the similar boat, you got the Proliferate cards, because those kind of do, like every turn you get an extra counter, so it's kind of like Conclave Mentor in a way. So you got stuff like Evolution Sage, you got Sword of Truth and Justice, and you got Karn's Bastion. And there's a bunch of other ones, but those were the ones I thought were most synergistic, so I figured I'd mention those ones. Next up, I want to talk about cards that have very good synergies when you use plus encounters. You got stuff like Armorcraft Judge, and that just draws you a bunch of cards. You've got Rishgar, Puma Renegade, so all your creatures with counters on them can tap for mana. Very nice. You've got Inspiring Call, another way to just draw a bunch of cards. Like, this is a good instant speed card. So you draw a bunch of cards, and all your creatures that have counters on them gain indestructible until end of turn. So you can use that in response to a board wipe, and it's a huge blowout for your opponents. You got Bajri's Lieutenant, so whenever a creature with a counter on it dies, you get a token. So they replace themselves, which is really nice. You've got Fertilid, which comes in with counters, and you can remove counters to get lands. And so if you keep putting more counters on it, it's just kind of like an easy source of lands. You've got Incubation Druid, you throw a counter on it, and it becomes Gilded Lotus. The Ozolith just seems amazing in this deck because of all the counters. Wildwood Scourge seems pretty decent. Whenever you put a counter on a non-Hydra, it gets a counter, so it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You got Walking Ballista, one of the best counter cards there is. The bigger you make it, the more you can ping. It's just very, very powerful. Auto included deck. And also, it's really nice. Like that and Stonecoil Serpent, both are really nice with this, because they cost colorless mana X. So the amount of mana that Hamza is discounting your cards, you can just say Hamza's discounting your cards by 4 mana. That means you can play a Stonecoil Serpent for 4 without paying any mana. You can play a Ballista on 2 without paying any mana. It's very nice. It's a very, very nice synergy there. You got Swarm Shambler, which is kind of a cool card. It gives you like pseudo protection. Like if your creature with a counter on it gets targeted, you get an insect token. And it gives you the direct way to put a counter on Swarm Shambler. Gyre Sage just ends up tapping for a ton of mana as you put counters on it and it grows. You got Iridescent Hornbeetle. This is a really, really cool card in this deck. So say you have 5 creatures. Say you played Avengers Zendikar, you got 6 tokens, and you put a counter on all 6 of the tokens. If you have Iridescent Hornbeetle in play, then you would create 6 1/1 tokens, because you put 6 counters on creatures you control this turn. That seems great. This card it's a super cool card in this deck. Auto include, I think. Very, very powerful. It lets your board get super wide, so you can put counters on all of that, and it gets wider and wider. It just such good synergies. Like, this might be one of the best cards in the deck. You got Slurk, All Ingesting. Whenever another creature you control dies and had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's just kind of a good way to keep your counters alive, kind of like the Ozolith. You got Animation Module. It's a good way to make tokens. Whenever you get a counter, you can pay 1 to make a token, and then you can kind of like proliferate. You can add a counter onto something for 3 mana. Zhang Yang Gu. more mana dork stuff. Biogenic Ooze comes in with 2 oozes. At end step, you put a counter on everything. So it's a 5 mana card that basically makes all your spells cost 3 mana less because it gives a counter to all your oozes. And then you can make more of them. You got Cryptic Trilobite. This is just a very cool card. It's another X1, and it gives you mana, and it just seems very good. It's a cool card. I think it's an underrated card, underplayed. Crystalline Crawler, another good mana source. Myriad Construct. So the bigger this thing gets, there's going to be ways to target your stuff in this deck to put counters on things. So you can target Myriad Construct with one of those and make a bunch of tokens. It seems good in the deck. And then we got stuff like Spike Hatcher, where you can remove a counter to regenerate it, or you can pay 2 and remove a counter to put a counter on another creature. So you can kind of move counters around pretty easily with that. Then we got Spike Weaver, which you can remove 2 counters to put a counter on something. You can remove 1 counter from it to fog. So you can basically keep 1 mana up and just fog all the time because you're going to keep putting counters on this thing. And Steelbane Hydra. Steelbane Hydra seems sweet. It's a good way to remove pesky artifacts and enchantments. It's a creature that enters with counters on it. The more counters you have, the better it is. And it's very good with your commander with Hamza, because if Hamza makes stuff cost 5 less, then that's 5 straight into the X. Seems good. Next and then last card I want to talk about is Return of the Wild Speaker. This deck's going to create a lot of tokens, and it's going to make stuff really big. So it's going to be very good in both modes. You can win the game using the overrun mode, and you can draw a ton of cards using the card draw mode. This Return of the Wild Speaker is just a fantastic card all around. Great card. Next up, I want to talk about just some cards that work really well in the go wide strategy. You got Abzan Falconer to give everything flying. You got Soul of the Harvest to draw a bunch of cards. Same thing with Shamanic Revelation. You got Aura Shards to blow all of the artifacts and enchantments up with all the tokens you're going to be creating. And Craterhoof Behemoth just to end the game. It's a great card. And then for some of the big stuff that you can play, because you're making tons and tons of extra mana off Hamza, so you're going to want to have some big splashy spells that you can cast for cheap. So, you got the Eldrazi Titans. You can play Ulamog, Kozilek, Emrakul, throw these in the deck, and you can hard cast them, which is really nice. You can hard cast them for significantly cheaper. And so you can get the cast triggers. Like, tons of the Eldrazi are very good in this deck. It That Betrays, Void Winter, all of them are fantastic, especially because, like, if you happen to have, like, for Emrakul, if you happen to have 13 creatures in play with counters on it, it's free to cast, because there's no colored mana involved. Like, you could do some really nasty things with some colorless creatures like the Eldrazi Titans. Same thing with like Platinum Angel, Platinum Empyrean, or Blightsteel Colossus. You can make them super cheap, and they're just very, very powerful cards. You can throw in Greater Good, because you're going to have some big creatures with all these tokens, so that's a good card draw outlet. Primeval Protector, make it really cheap. It enters, you get counters and everything, so it kind of just grows your board after you've already put some counters on stuff, and each of your opponents make it even cheaper. It just seems like an auto-include card. World Spine Worm just seems big and splashy and fun. Apex Devastator, same thing, big, splashy, fun. You can throw in like Elish Norn or Vorinclex, the other Vorinclex, not Monstrous Raider, but the really, really good one that doubles your mana and stops your opponent from untapping it. Seems very powerful in this deck. Either of those, Elish Norn gives you that boost and you got a bunch of creatures while minimizing your opponent's creatures and probably killing a lot of them. Seems extremely powerful in the deck. Archetype of Endurance and Avacyn seem fantastic just to protect your board, give you everything hexproof, give everything indestructible, basically make yourself untouchable. And then Kamal, Heart of Kroza. It's a really cool card in the deck. Overrun effect is very powerful. You can win the game off that because you're going to be going pretty wide. Seems like a good include. And that is what I've got for Hamza. So, Hamza, Guardian of Arashin. That's what I got. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember, hit that like button. Comment down below the next commander you want me to do for first thoughts. Whichever one gets the most likes, I will probably do. Or if there's only one, then maybe I'll do it. As long as it's something that I haven't done yet, and preferably something newer. If you want me to do some of these first thoughts videos for the Time Spiral Remastered cards, let me know. Just the only reason why I don't plan to do any, because they're not actually new cards. But if you really want to see some, then comment down below the commanders that you want to see me do. And don't forget, join the Discord. It's linked down below. It's going to be a fun time. Trying to get a good community in there. You've got pretty much everybody that's been featured in the videos in there. And yeah, it's cool. It's a cool time. We got the patrons in there as well. It'll be fun. Speaking of patrons, if you want to become a patron, link down below. If you can buy any cards I'm talking about in this video, buy them through the TCG Player Affiliate link, helps out the channel. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.